So, Ellie, what is your number one piece of literary advice?
It's hard to choose because there have been some good ones over the years. But the first one that came into my head when we were thinking about this was someone once told me that every story has already been told, which is not a bad thing at all. It doesn't mean your story isn't worth telling. What it means is the foundations of every story have already been told. So the important thing is to tell the story your way, put your unique way of telling it onto the novel, the short story, whatever it is. And that's what people want. People aren't looking for something groundbreaking necessarily. They're looking for your story, your way. And that was quite liberating for me, not trying to worry about writing the most amazing book ever, but worrying about making sure it was authentically me. And I wanted to share that with our writers because I think that's important.
Oh, definitely. It's something that Lisa Vino and Savannah Cade both mentioned as well, in terms of being authentically you and how stories have been told, because, they both write different forms of romance. And romance is so hard to write because everyone already knows the ending. So it really is about that journey in order to get your characters there. And again, because everyone knows the ending, it just makes that journey so much harder to be interesting and original and so much more special when you get it right.
Absolutely. And those are the books that you keep coming back to, right? Even if you know the ending, you want to know how those characters do it, or I suppose how the author executes it in their own way. What about you? What is the a piece of literary advice that inspired you?
So mine's actually on my bookshelf over there. I should have brought it over, but it's that you can't edit a blank page. And that's usually cited to Jodi Picoult, but I have heard it other people get credit for that as well. So I'm not sure who said it first. But when you're really struggling to write a scene, I feel like a reminder that you are going to go back and edit it is really important. Because I remember when I was at uni, we actually had to show multiple drafts of our stories and every single draft that we did, and we had to have at least three. And that was really hard because some of us didn't understand the importance of editing. And we were like, oh no, the story's right. We don't need to go back and do this. And I think that showed our naivety because we didn't want to show that and we didn't see why it was important. And I think that some of us didn't push ourselves as hard as we could have between drafts, because I look back at drafts of some of my other projects now and how different they are between one and done. And it is massive. And I know that some people really want to write that perfect first draft, but it's just not a thing. It's not. There are going to be typos. There are going to be inconsistencies. There's going to be imagery that you could make more interesting or more vivid to allow the reader to really see and understand the world that you've written in. And when you're writing something, particularly when you haven't outlined it, you're not going to be able to focus on the description and the poetry, basically anything except coming up with a plot in that first draft if you haven't outlined it. And that's why I've started outlining. That's why I've started enjoying outlining. And I do find it a creative process because I keep calling it problem solving because it is. And so is editing. Editing is problem solving because you're putting holes in things and then you're filling in those holes using the right technique. And, a hole in a piece of wood is different to a hole in a wall, the same as a hole in a romance is different to a hole in a fantasy. And that's part of the skill. And you've got to learn how to be an editor because it's a lot cheaper to self-edit than it is to outsource.
Just get your first draft done and then edit it later.
Precisely.
Perfect.